Hello students, welcome to Sri Jain Rank Zone. So basically in today's lecture, we are going to discuss a question about how many monochloro products. So basically question is how many monochloro products are obtained. How many monochloro products are obtained by chlorination of isopentane by chlorination of iso isopentane. So by the chlorination of isopentane. So this is basically the question. This is isopentane. Now first draw the structure of isopentane. So first draw the structure of isopentane. So what is the structure of isopentane? This is CH3, CH, CH3 and CH2 and CH3. See how this kind of questions can be solved. Basically iso group is what? If on the corner carbon atom, if on the corner carbon atom there are two CH3 groups, then this is basically the iso group. This one, the line which I am drawing, this is iso group, and total 5 carbons are there, therefore it is isopentane. Now basically if question is about how many monochloro products are obtained by chlorination of isopentane, see basically the number of monochloro products, the number of monochloro products, if we are looking for the monochloro products formed in chlorination, formed in chlorination, it depends on the type of hydrogen, it depends on the type of hydrogen. So it depends on type of hydrogen. So which type of hydrogen? See, I am circling all the hydrogens, I am circling all the hydrogens there, like CH3, CH, CH3, CH2, CH3. I am circling all the hydrogens. See, this one hydrogen which I am circling and this one, these two hydrogen atoms on the carbon atom are same. See, another hydrogen atom on this carbon, another hydrogen atom on this carbon, and another carbon atom on this hydrogen. So these are basically the type of hydrogens which will give the monochloro products in the chlorination. Now see, what are the products obtained? So this is basically 1 degree carbon, this is also 1 degree, and this is 2 degree, this is 3 degree carbon, this is 2 degree, and this is 1 degree. So these three are 1 degree, this carbon is 2 degree, and this carbon is 3 degree. Now see, what are the products obtained? What are the products obtained? So when we do chlorination of this compound CH3, CH, CH3 and CH2 and CH3. So chlorination is basically in the presence of Cl2 and HNO. In the presence of Cl2 and HNO. First I am using this one hydrogen, either this one or either this one, both are same. So the first product form is CH3, CH, and when one hydrogen is replaced by chlorine, this is CH2Cl, and the rest will remain same, CH2, CH3, rest will remain same. Now see, this carbon is basically chiral carbon. How this is chiral carbon? On this carbon, one CH3 is there. On this carbon, there is CH2, CH3. On this carbon, there is CH2Cl. And also on this carbon, there is hydrogen. When 4 different groups are attached on the carbon, this carbon is basically the chiral carbon. This carbon is basically chiral carbon. And we know in case of chiral carbon, two types of products are formed. One is dextro and one is levo. So one is dextro and one is levo. So how many products are obtained? By monochlorination of this hydrogen, two products are obtained. One is dextro and one is levo. Now see, now I am replacing. So basically we are looking for monochloro products. We are looking for monochloro products. In the same way, when we target another hydrogen, like this, so now I am targeting this group. So this hydrogen will be replaced by Cl. Now the product obtained will be CH3, CH, CH3, CH2 and CH2Cl. So this is another product. So this is basically the product number 3. This is basically the product number 3. And our question is how many products are obtained? Now see another. Now I am targeting another hydrogen. You people say which hydrogen should I target now? Now I am targeting this one hydrogen there. Now I am targeting this hydrogen, this one. So basically now I am targeting this one hydrogen. So this hydrogen being replaced by the Cl2, chlorine. So Cl2 in chiral carbon, because in this case what happens? So this is basically not the chiral carbon. So now I am targeting which one hydrogen? This one hydrogen. So what happens basically? In this case we can see this hydrogen will be replaced by the Cl. This hydrogen will be replaced by the Cl. So we can say in this case, basically what happens? This hydrogen is replaced by the chlorine. But this is not chiral center. Why this is not a chiral center? Because two CH3 groups are there. Same groups are there. Other product is basically, you can see. So now total products till now obtained is 1, 2, 1, 2, 3 and 4th. Now I am looking for the next product. So I am targeting the next hydrogen. The compound is CH3CH, CH3, CH2 and CH3. On chlorination means reaction in presence of Cl2 and HNO. So now I am targeting this one hydrogen. When Cl replace this hydrogen, so product obtained is CH3, CH, CH3, CH, Cl and CH3. Now you can easily say again, when Cl attached with this carbon atom, this is basically the chiral center. Why this is chiral center? One group attached on this is CH3, another group attached on this is Cl, and one is hydrogen, 3 different, and this is 4th different. So 4 different groups are attached. Therefore, this center will be chiral center. This center will be chiral center. And in case of chiral center, always when single chiral center is present, two products are obtained. One is dextro and one is levo. So this is basically the 5th product and this is basically the 6th product. So what we have seen? We have seen total how many products are obtained. So basically total are 6 products are obtained. You can easily see 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 and 6. So answer is total monochloro. So we will say total monochloro products after chlorination is 6. So answer is 6. You can easily see. So one is dextro, another is levo. When this hydrogen replaces, this is 3rd product. When this hydrogen replaces, this is 4th product. And when this hydrogen replaces, again chiral center, so 5th and 6th. So total 6 products are obtained. Now we will discuss about the bromination reaction. So now we will discuss about the bromination reaction. See. So next we are going to discuss about bromination reaction. Bromination reaction. So we are going to discuss about the bromination reaction. See, bromination reaction is similar to the chlorination. Bromination is also similar to chlorination reaction, but the reactivity, of bromination, but the reactivity of bromination is slower. So the reactivity of bromination is slower than chlorination. The reactivity of bromination is slower than the chlorination reaction. but the selectivity, of bromination is higher. But the selectivity of bromination, is higher. So reactivity of bromination is less, but the selectivity of bromination is higher. So we will discuss the selectivity on the basis of hydrogen. So this we will discuss on the basis of type of hydrogen. On the basis of type of hydrogen. Hydrogen can be 1 degree hydrogen. Hydrogen can be 2 degree hydrogen. Hydrogen can be 3 degree hydrogen. In case of chlorination, in case of chlorination. So in case of chlorination, the selectivity is basically 1 ratio 3.8 and ratio 5. While in the case of bromination, the selectivity is 1 ratio 82 and ratio 1600. So this is basically the selectivity in case of chlorination and in case of bromination. Please remember this. This is for chlorination, this is for bromination, and depends on the type of hydrogen. This is the selectivity in case of chlorination and in case of bromination. Now see the reaction based on this. So discuss question related to this. Like compound is given CH3, CH, CH3 and CH3, and we are going to do the chlorination. Of this compound. So when we are going to do the chlorination of this, we are going to do the chlorination of this compound. See what happens. So the product obtained can be, you can easily see either this group or this group or this group. These are basically same. These three groups are basically same. So we can replace hydrogen by chlorine at this position, or this position. These three positions are same. When hydrogen is removed from this position and chlorine added, this is different. So basically two types of products are obtained. One is CH3, CH, CH3 and CH2, Cl. And another product obtained is CH3, C, CH3, CH3, and when hydrogen replaced by Cl, it will be Cl there. So these two types of products are obtained. So this is basically the 1 degree product. This is basically because this is 1 degree hydrogen and this is 3 degree hydrogen. So this is 1 degree product and this is basically 3 degree product. Now see the ratio. Now I am comparing the ratio of 1 degree product. So I am comparing the ratio of 1 degree product and 3 degree product. So I am comparing the ratio of 1 degree product and 3 degree product. For 1 degree product, first we will use number of 1 degree hydrogens, multiply by selectivity, of 1 degree hydrogen. If you want to compare the 3 degree product, then you should look for number of 3 degree hydrogen and multiply by selectivity of 3 degree hydrogen. Now see, so how many 1 degree hydrogen atoms are there? 3 plus 3 6 and plus 3 9. So you will say there are 9 1 degree hydrogens. There are 9 1 degree hydrogens. And what is the selectivity of 1 degree hydrogen in the chlorination? You can easily see. The selectivity of 1 degree hydrogen is 1 in chlorination, and the selectivity of 2 degree hydrogen is 3.8 in the chlorination, and the selectivity of 3 degree hydrogen is 5. You can easily see. Now, so selectivity of 1 degree hydrogen is basically 1. Now see how many number of 3 degree hydrogens. So there is only one 3 degree hydrogen. There is only one 3 degree hydrogen. And what is the selectivity of 3 degree hydrogen in case of chlorination? So in case of chlorination, the selectivity of 3 degree hydrogen is basically 5. So multiply by 5. So the ratio of product obtained is 9 is to 5. Now we will discuss about the percentage of 1 degree product. So what is the percentage of 1 degree product obtained? What is the percentage of 1 degree product obtained? Now see, so 1 degree is basically 9. 1 degree is basically 9. So it will be 9 divided by total product obtained is 9 plus 5, that is 14. So it is 9 plus 5 14 multiply by 100. So this is the percentage of 1 degree product. And if you want to know the percentage of 3 degree product, if you want to know the percentage of 3 degree product, then how you know? See, how much is 3 degree product? That is 5. And total product is basically 14. So we will say multiply by this 100, multiply by this 100. So this is basically 3 degree product. Either you may also subtract the 1 degree product amount from 100. So this is basically the question based on the selectivity. This is basically the question based on the selectivity of chlorination. Now, one question I also want to discuss related to the selectivity of bromination. Now, see what happens in case of bromination. This is also a very easy question. Suppose if the same compound is given, like this, CH3, CH3, and this is also CH3, and the reagent we are using is bromine in presence of sunlight, So this is also a very easy question. Easily see. So you can easily see this is also 1 degree hydrogen, and this is also 1 degree hydrogen. You can easily see. So you can easily see in this case, basically what happens in this case, either you can remove hydrogen from this position, or this, or this. These three positions are equivalent, or you can remove hydrogen from this position. So these three positions are basically 1 degree, and this is basically the 3 degree. So products obtained are when you remove hydrogen and place bromine at 1 degree. So the product will be like this: CH3, CH, CH3, and CH2Br. This one product is obtained. Now, if we remove 3 degree hydrogen, then product obtained is CH3C, CH3Br, and CH3. So this is basically 1 degree product, and this is basically 3 degree product. Now see what happens. We want to compare the selectivity. So again I am comparing the 1 degree product. Again, I am comparing the 1 degree product and comparing the 3 degree product. So I am comparing the 1 degree product and 3 degree product. So for 1 degree product and 3 degree product, how many type of 1 degree hydrogen? So basically type means number. So number of 1 degree hydrogen divide by number of 3 degree hydrogen, and number of 1 degree hydrogen multiply by the selectivity of 1 degree. The selectivity of 1 degree in bromination divide by, we will use the selectivity. We will use the selectivity of 3 degree in bromination. Now see, when you see the selectivity of 1 degree, when you see the selectivity of 1 degree and 3 degree in case of bromination, see, in case of bromination, selectivity of 1 degree is 1, while the selectivity of 3 degree is 1600. Now, see the question. So how many 1 degree hydrogen atoms? 3 plus 3, 6, and plus 3, 9. And how many 3 degree hydrogen atoms? 1. Multiply by. Selectivity of 1 degree is 1, while the selectivity of 3 degree is 1600. While the selectivity of 3 degree is 1600. So this is basically the ratio of 1 degree product and 3 degree product. Now, so this is the ratio of 1 degree product divided by 3 degree product. Now see, if you want to know the percentage, if you want to know the percentage of 1 degree product and percentage of 3 degree product, so percentage 1 degree product will be, percentage of 1 degree product will be like this. So 1 degree is basically 9. So we will write in numerator 9 divide by only 1 degree, 3 degree there. So it will be 9 plus 1600. So it will be 1609 multiply by 100, multiply by 100. In the same way again, if you want to know the percentage of 3 degree product, then 3 degree is basically 1600 and total is 1609 multiply by 100. So this is basically the 1 degree percentage product and 3 degree percentage product. Now see, next the reaction. So total we have discussed 3 types of reaction till now in free radical substitution. One is fluorination, another is bromination and chlorination. Now we are going to discuss about another free radical substitution reaction. So another free radical substitution reaction I am going to discuss with you is iodination. This is iodination. So basically iodination reaction is endothermic and reversible in nature. So this reaction is basically endothermic and reversible in nature. Endothermic and reversible in nature. Please note these 2 points. Iodination is basically endothermic and reversible in nature. First, I am going to discuss the reaction with you. This is basically alkane, and when the reaction of alkane like methane with I2 in presence of sunlight. So this sign is basically for the reversible reaction. Now, one hydrogen will be replaced by iodine and the side product obtained is Hi. And we know this Hi product obtained is a very strong reducing agent. We already discussed the strong reducing agent character of this compound. In the hydrocarbon, we have discussed in detail about Hi. So first point which I am going to discuss with you, note point number 1. So point number 1 is basically iodination is a reversible process. Iodination is a reversible process. So iodination is a reversible process because HI form HI formed in the product is a strong reducing agent, because HI form is a strong reducing agent, is a strong reducing agent. So this is basically a strong reducing agent which will reduce. So if HI is a reducing agent, so it will reduce CS3I into it will reduce CS3I into CH4. So basically, as HI is a reducing agent, this will reduce CH3I back into CH4. So we require a strong oxidizing agent for reaction to be completed. So we add point number 2. So we add strong. So we add strong oxidizing agent. So we add strong oxidizing agent. So we add strong oxidizing agent like note these two. This is very important question. So we add strong oxidizing agent like HiO3, iodic acid, and HNO3. So these are basically the strong oxidizing agent added in the iodination reaction for reaction completion. So these oxidizing agent oxidizes. These oxidizing agent oxidizes Hi into I2. Hi into I2. How? The oxidation number of I is -1 and the oxidation number of I is 0. So increase in oxidation number means oxidation. Now see. So if CH4 reacts with I2, the reaction is reversible. In presence of sunlight, product obtained is CH3I plus HI. So this HI is basically a strong reducing agent. So due to this strong reducing agent, this product will again convert into reactant reversible in nature. So we have to remove this HI. So how we can remove this HI? We add strong oxidizing agent. So what happens when we add oxidizing agent? It will oxidize HI. It will oxidize HI. So HI gets oxidizes into I2 and byproduct obtained is, so we can see easily the oxidation number of I is -1 there and oxidation number of I is 0 there. So this is the logic behind the. So in free radical substitution reaction, we have discussed about fluorination. We have discussed the fluorination reaction. Yes. In fluorination, two cases we have discussed. One is F2 in presence of sunlight, and one we have discussed fluorination in presence of dark and inert atmosphere is provided by N2. So both reactions we have discussed. Then we have discussed in detail about chlorination. Then we have discussed about detail in chlorination. Then we have detailed discussion about bromination. Then we have detailed discussion about the iodination. Then we have detailed discussion about the iodination. So all free radical substitution reactions we have discussed in detail. Now we will discuss about the allylic or benzylic substitution. So next we are going to discuss about the allylic or benzylic substitutions. So we are going to discuss about the allylic or benzylic. Allylic or benzylic substitution. Allylic or benzylic substitution. As you people know, allylic and benzylic group. So you people know in detail about the allylic and benzylic groups. For example, if a compound is given like this, CH2 double bond CH and CH3. So this is basically sp2 carbon. The carbon which is next to sp2 carbon, if sp3, so this carbon we call allylic carbon in the linear chain or in cyclic. So this carbon is basically the allylic carbon and this carbon is basically the vinylic carbon. Now, when we do the allylic substitution, like this, CH2 CH CH3, and we add bromine in presence of sunlight. So we know this is basically free radical substitution reaction. So the most stable free radical form is this one. Why? Because this is conjugated system. Look, free radical single double. So this is basically the allylic free radical. Most stable in this compound. So bromine is also having the free radical. Now these two form bond and the product obtained is we can say, and the product obtained is CH2 double bond CH and CH2Br. So this is the allylic carbon. So we can directly do the reaction. How you can directly do the reaction? Simply replace the hydrogen of allylic carbon by bromine. So this is basically the allylic carbon. You can simply replace the allylic carbon hydrogen by bromine. So this is basically the product we will call allyl bromide. So this is basically the allyl bromide obtained. So this is allylic substitution. So same reaction can take place in presence of NBS. If the same question is given like this, CH2 CH double bond CH3, either you can use Br2 in presence of sunlight. Also you can use NBS. What is NBS? NBS is basically N-bromo. N-bromo succinimide. So what is the structure of N-bromo succinimide? See, CH2 C double bond O, C double bond O, N. So on nitrogen, bromine is there. So this is N-bromo, and this is basically the derivative of succinic acid. Therefore, so this whole compound we are talking about, so this is basically the succinic acid derivative. Therefore, we call N-bromo succinimide. You don't need to remember the structure. Only you remember from this compound, bromine intermediate is obtained as a free radical. So both of the reagents have the same work and both of them will do the allylic substitution. So how the allylic substitution will take place? CH2 double bond CH and CH2Br. So this is basically the allylic substitution takes place. In the same way, if question is given like this, this is basically the benzene and this is CH2 and CH3. The carbon which is next to benzene, is called benzylic carbon. Now you can easily say the carbon next to benzene is benzylic carbon. If you use Br2 in presence of sunlight or you use NBS, that is N-bromo succinimide. So one of the hydrogen atom will be replaced by bromine because benzylic free radical is more stable. First, I am drawing the intermediate. So intermediate obtained after removal of hydrogen is benzylic free radical. Now, from these two reagents, the free radical obtained is bromine. From these two reagents, the free radical obtained is bromine, and this bromine will attack on this carbon, and the product obtained is CH3, CH, Br, and CH3. So this is basically the benzylic free radical. So in this way we can prepare the product. Now see the another question based on this. The another question related to this. If a compound is given like this, if the compound is given like this is double bonded and this is CH3. Now when you add in presence of Br2 and sunlight, or you can say we are using NBS. So this is also allylic position. This is also allylic position, and this is also allylic position. So there are two allylic positions. First draw the intermediates. On this is CS3. So first I am drawing this free radical. Another possibility after removal of hydrogen. Another possibility after removal of hydrogen is this one free radical. Now see what happens. As you can see in the first case, this is allylic free radical along with 3 alpha hydrogens. So allylic free radical, it means resonance, and along with resonance there is alpha hydrogen also there. So you can easily say 3 alpha hydrogens are there and 2 alpha hydrogen there. So there is resonance plus 5 alpha hydrogen. Again see, resonance is also there plus how many alpha hydrogen atoms are there? Only 2 alpha hydrogen atoms are there. So which is more stable? If this is first, if this is second, so first intermediate is more stable because resonance along with 5 alpha hydrogen and their resonance along with only 2 alpha hydrogen. Now see what happens. So the major product obtained will be, so bromine will attack. So bromine will attack at more stable free radical. So bromine prefers to attack at this position. Bromine will also attack at this position, but this will be the minor product. This will be the minor product, and this is the major product. So draw two products, one is major and one is minor. So the major product obtained is like this. CH3 already there, and bromine will attach to this part. Draw the another product, which is double bonded carbon atom, and this is CH3, and bromine will attack at this position. So this is basically the minor product, and this is basically the major product, because more stability of intermediate. If there is more stability of intermediate, so first intermediate is more stable. When intermediate is more stable, then more stable product is obtained. Therefore first product is the major product and second product is minor product. Now see the next question based on this. If question is given like this is benzene and having CH3, and you add bromine in presence of sunlight, also you can add NBS. So this carbon is basically the benzylic carbon. This carbon is basically the benzylic carbon, and we know benzylic free radical is more stable. So most stable intermediate form is this benzylic free radical, most stable free radical. Again, this will supply this reagent, which is Br2 in presence of sunlight or NBS, this will supply bromine free radical. Now these two will form bond, and the product obtained is CS2Br, and the product obtained is CS2Br. So this is all about the free radical substitution reaction. Now we will discuss about the nucleophilic substitution reactions. See, so next we are going to discuss about the nucleophilic substitution reaction. So we are going to discuss about the nucleophilic substitution reaction. So we are going to discuss about the nucleophilic substitution reaction. We can donate nucleophilic substitution reaction by NSR. So we can discuss the nucleophilic substitution reaction by NSR. So there is two possibility of nucleophilic substitution reaction. One is direct substitution, and one is indirect substitution, So there are two types of nucleophilic substitution reaction. One is direct substitution and one is indirect substitution. Now, what are the direct substitution reactions? What are the direct nucleophilic substitution reactions? So direct nucleophilic substitution reactions are SN1, SN2 and SNI. And indirect nucleophilic substitution reactions are basically SNAR. So this is basically nucleophilic substitution via addition. So nucleophilic substitution in aromatic compounds. Nucleophilic substitution in aromatic compounds. Another nucleophilic substitution reaction is SNAE. So this is basically nucleophilic substitution via addition and elimination. Now see. So how many reactions are there? Direct substitution reactions are SN1, SN2 and SNI. So this is basically the nucleophilic substitution reaction SN1, and this is nucleophilic substitution SN2, and this is nucleophilic substitution intramolecular, and this is nucleophilic substitution in aromatic compounds, and this is nucleophilic substitution in via addition and elimination. Now see what happens. Basically, if there is alkyl halide, and in alkyl halide, when we use nucleophile, so this X is basically leaving group. So nucleophile will substitute. This nucleophile will substitute the leaving group. When nucleophile substitute leaving group, it forms RNU, and leaving group removes in the form of X minus. So basically, how easy this leaving group will be moved? Faster is the rate of reaction. So we can say very easily the rate of nucleophilic substitution reaction. The rate of nucleophilic substitution reaction is directly proportional is directly proportional to the tendency of leaving group. Is directly proportional to the tendency of leaving group. So if better leaving group means faster reaction. If better leaving group means faster reaction. So basically leaving group will decide. Suppose if leaving group is like this, in Rx, this X can be fluorine, this X can be chlorine, this X can be bromine, and this can be iodine. So one possibility is RF, another possibility is RCl, another possibility is RBr, and another possibility is RI. As we can see, leaving group tendency. As we can see, leaving group tendency is basically which is better leaving group. Iodine being large in size, then bromine, then chlorine, and then fluorine is smallest in size. So iodine is a better leaving group. I is a better leaving group, then Br, and then Cl, and then F. So better leaving group will give faster reaction in nucleophilic substitution reaction. So we can say rate of nucleophilic substitution reaction is faster in case of Ri and slowest in case of Rf, then RCl, and then RBr. So this is the order of rate of nucleophilic substitution reaction. So first we will discuss slightly about the nucleophiles. So we will compare the strength of nucleophiles also, because students face difficulty in comparing the strength of nucleophiles. So first we are going to discuss about the nucleophiles, and this is very easy. So student take tension about the nucleophiles strength, but nucleophilic strength is not too much difficult. This is very easy. I'm telling you, when you will study, you will say this is really very easy. So before discussing about the nucleophile, I will discuss about the solvent. I will discuss about some solvent, because solvent will be used in nucleophilic substitution reaction. So what is solvent? So basically solvent is a liquid. It is a liquid. Solvent is basically the liquid which provides medium. Solvent is basically the liquid which provides medium for the reaction. So solvent is a liquid which provides medium for the reaction, because solvent will be used in the nucleophilic substitution reaction. So we will divide the solvent into two parts. See, so solvent are basically of two types. One type of solvent is basically the polar solvent. In case of polar solvent, dipole moment is not zero, while in case of non-polar solvent, dipole moment is zero. So there are two types of solvent. Why we require solvent? Because solvent is required to provide medium for the reaction. So in case of reaction, always there is a role of solvent. For example, like dry ether, carbon disulfide, water, all acts as a medium. So basically solvent are of two types. One is polar solvent and one is non-polar solvent. And this polar solvent again classify into two parts. One is polar protic solvent. and one is polar aprotic solvent, and one is polar aprotic solvent. So one is basically polar protic solvent, that is PPS, and one is polar aprotic solvent, that is PAS. Now see, and another non-polar solvents basically are those solvents in which the dipole moment is zero. So non-polar solvents are basically those solvents in which dipole moment is zero. For example, if a compound like CCl4, carbon disulfide, and benzene, in all these cases, the dipole moment is zero. Therefore, these all are non-polar solvent. So solvent are of basically two types, polar and non-polar. Polar solvent is basically polar protic and polar aprotic. And we know the solubility principle. And we know the solubility principle. According to solubility principle, according to the solubility principle, like dissolves like. According to the solubility principle, like dissolves like. So basically, what is like dissolves like? It is like this: polar compound dissolves in polar solvent. So dissolves polar compound dissolves in polar solvent. Polar compound dissolves in polar solvent, and and non-polar compound dissolves in non-polar solvent. Polar compound dissolves in polar solvent, and so basically polar compound dissolves in polar solvent, and non-polar compound dissolves in non-polar solvent. So this is basically the solubility principle. Now see, first we will discuss about the polar protic solvents. So first I'm going to discuss about the PPS. So we are going to discuss about the polar protic solvents. So we are going to discuss about PPS. What is PPS? PPS is basically polar. PPS is basically polar protic solvent. PPS is basically polar protic solvent. First of all, polar protic solvents are polar in nature. Polar protic solvents are polar in nature. So these are polar in nature, and also these solvents having acidic hydrogen. So these solvents having acidic hydrogen. These solvents having acidic hydrogen, and also in polar protic solvent, in polar protic solvent also there are chances of hydrogen bonding. So there are chances of hydrogen bonding is possible. So hydrogen bonding is also possible. So in case of polar protic solvent, these are polar in nature, and also these are having acidic hydrogen, and also hydrogen bonding is possible. Hydrogen bonding is possible. Now see the examples. Now see the examples of polar protic solvent. What are the examples of polar protic solvent? See, this is very easy. Like if water is given, if water is given, if alcohol is given, ROH, if phenol is given, like benzene having OH, also if RNH2 is given, also if RNHR is given, also if CS3COOH is given, also if HF is given, also if RSH is given. So also like H2SO4 is given. As we can see, these all are polar in nature, because polar means dipole moment of all this compound is non-zero. Dipole moment of all this compound is non-zero. So we are discussing about the polar protic solvent. Now you can see easily. Basically hydrogen is attached. Hydrogen is attached with oxygen, which is more electronegative atom. So this is basically the acidic hydrogen. This is acidic hydrogen. In the same way again, hydrogen is again attached with more electronegative atom. Again, hydrogen is attached with more electronegative atom. Again, hydrogen is attached with more. If hydrogen is attached with more electronegative atom like oxygen, fluorine, nitrogen, and CCl3 and sp hybridized carbon So when hydrogen is attached with oxygen, fluorine, nitrogen, and CCl3 and sp hybridized carbon, so this hydrogen is highly acidic in nature. This hydrogen is highly acidic in nature. Please remember, this hydrogen is basically highly acidic in the nature. So in all case, we can easily see hydrogen with oxygen, hydrogen with nitrogen, again hydrogen with nitrogen, again hydrogen with oxygen, again hydrogen with fluorine, here hydrogen with sulfur, and here hydrogen with oxygen. So these all are polar protic solvent in nature. So basically the main concept is, basically what, if it is given like this. So in case of polar protic solvent, what happens? See, in case of polar protic solvent can dissolve. Polar protic solvent can dissolve cation. Polar protic solvent can dissolve cation as well as anion. Polar protic solvent can dissolve. It can dissolve cation as well as anion. Anionic part of reagent. So if reagent having two parts, suppose this is AB reagent. This is AB reagent, and in this AB reagent, this A plus is cationic part and this is B minus is anionic part. So this is basically the cationic part and this B minus is basically the anionic part. And we use solvent as polar protic. So this polar protic can dissolve cation. It can dissolve cation. Also, it can dissolve anion. So polar protic solvent can dissolve both. So polar protic solvent can dissolve both cation as well as anion part of the reagent. So this is the basically the concept of solvent. So reagents are basically surrounded, and in reagent both part, cationic part as well as anionic part, both part are surrounded by the PPS, polar protic solvent. So this is all concept regarding the polar protic solvent. Now I am going to discuss with you polar aprotic solvent. So the next we are going to discuss with you is PAS. What is PAS? This is basically the polar aprotic solvent. This is basically the polar aprotic solvent. Polar aprotic solvent. So basically, see the features of polar aprotic solvent. So these are also polar in nature. Polar aprotic solvents are also polar in nature. So these are also polar in nature. And also second point, they do not have acidic hydrogen. they do not have acidic hydrogen like polar protic solvent. And number 3, in case of polar aprotic solvent, hydrogen bonding is not possible. Hydrogen bonding is not possible. So in polar aprotic solvent, hydrogen bonding is also not possible. Now see the examples of polar aprotic solvent. See the examples of polar aprotic solvent. What are the examples? This compound you know very well. This is CH3, C double bond CH3. We also call this compound, acetone. So this is polar in nature. This is polar in nature, partial positive, partial negative, and this having not any acidic hydrogen. Is there any acidic hydrogen in oxygen? No. So this is aprotic, means not gives proton. So it means do not having the acidic hydrogen. So this is basically the acetone, a polar aprotic solvent. Another polar aprotic solvent is DMSO. Another polar aprotic solvent is DMSO. What is DMSO? Two methyls are there, therefore dimethyl. And these two methyl groups are attached on sulfur. These two methyl groups are attached on sulfur. Therefore, we call this as dimethyl sulfoxide. We call this dimethyl sulfoxide. We call this dimethyl sulfoxide. See, in the same way, another polar aprotic solvent is CH3, C double bond O, and CH3 and CH3. Again, this is basically the compound CH3, C double bond O, and NH2. This compound CH3, C double bond O, NH2. This compound we call acetamide. This compound we call acetamide. And we can see the compound acetamide bears two hydrogen atoms on nitrogen. When these two hydrogen atoms are replaced by methyl groups, the compound we will call as dimethyl acetamide. Dimethyl acetamide. So we will call it as DMA. This is dimethyl acetamide. See another polar aprotic solvent. Which is DMF. What is DMF? DMF is basically dimethyl formamide. DMF is basically dimethyl formamide. First, we will discuss about the formamide. Form means one carbon is there. In amide, there is only one carbon. So formamide is basically H C double bond O NH2. When these two hydrogen atoms are replaced by methyl groups, then we called it dimethyl formamide. It is also a polar aprotic solvent. H C double bond O, N, hydrogen replaced by CH3. So this is basically dimethyl formamide. See another polar aprotic solvent. Another polar aprotic solvent is like this. This compound is basically we called THF. What is THF? THF is basically tetrahydrofuran. This is another polar aprotic solvent. And the most important thing you should people note is basically, as we have seen, polar protic solvent dissolves both part of reagent, cationic part as well as anionic part. But but polar aprotic solvent polar aprotic solvent dissolves only polar aprotic solvent dissolves only cationic part of reagent. It dissolves only cationic part of reagent. It dissolves only cationic part of reagent. So this is the basically important point. So polar aprotic solvent dissolves only the cationic part of reagent. Like reagent is like this. Reagent is like this, electrophile and nucleophile. This is positive part, this is negative part. So polar aprotic solvent will dissolve only cationic part of reagent. It will dissolve only cationic part of the reagent. So nucleophilic part will be free. Nucleophilic part will be free. So this is basically the difference between the solvent. So this we have discussed about the now. Now we are discussing about the factors affecting nucleophile. So what are nucleophile basically? First we are going to discuss about what is nucleophile. What is nucleophile? So nucleophile are basically electron rich spaces. We will discuss in short because you have already studied the nucleophile in the GOC. So nucleophile are basically electron rich spaces. Nucleophile are basically electron rich spaces which attack on electron deficient center. So which attack on electron deficient center except H plus. Except H plus. So what is nucleophile? Nucleophiles are basically electron rich species which attacks on electron deficient center except H plus ion. For example, compound is given like this, CH3Cl, and this is OH negative, and we know this OH minus having electron rich, so this will attack. This is partial negative and this is partial positive. So this carbon is basically electron deficient center and this OH minus is basically electron rich. So electron rich species attacks on electron deficient center. So this OH minus we will call nucleophile. This OH minus we will call nucleophile. So this is basically the nucleophile. This is basically the nucleophile. And we know when steric hindrance increases, when steric hindrance increases, when steric hindrance increases, then nucleophilic strength decreases. So when steric hindrance increases, nucleophilic strength decreases. See with the example how we can explain this point. See how nucleophile is related to the steric hindrance. See, if a compound is given like this, CH3, and Cl. This is partial negative and this is partial positive. And here it is nucleophile, which is OH minus. This is nucleophile, electron rich, and this is electron deficient. If this nucleophile want to attack on electron deficient carbon, so there are three bulky groups. So due to these bulky groups, there is steric hindrance. So due to these bulky groups, there is steric hindrance. Now this nucleophile cannot attack at the electron deficient carbon very easily. Why? Because there is steric hindrance. It means when there is a steric hindrance, nucleophilic strength will decrease. So steric hindrance is inversely proportional to the attack of nucleophile. Steric hindrance is steric hindrance is inversely proportional to the strength of nucleophile, we can say. So nucleophiles can be negatively charged and can be neutral. So we can say nucleophiles can be nucleophiles can be negatively charged. Nucleophiles can be negatively charged or neutral. Nucleophiles can be negatively charged or neutral. How? So negatively charged nucleophile, all anions, all anions like all anions like R negative like CH3 negative, CH3, CH2 negative, and also like OH negative, and like Cl negative, Br negative, I negative, SH negative, RO negative, RS negative. These all are nucleophiles. These all are nucleophiles. And all anions means these are basically negatively charged. So these are basically negatively charged nucleophiles. In the same way, nucleophiles can be neutral. So what are the neutral nucleophiles? What are the neutral nucleophiles? For example, like water, on oxygen there is lone pair electron rich. Like alcohol, on oxygen there is lone pair. Like ammonia, on nitrogen there is lone pair. Like RNH2, again on nitrogen there is lone pair. Again RNHR, again there is lone pair on nitrogen. Like RSH, again there is lone pair on sulfur. Like PS3, again there is lone pair on phosphorus. Again H2O2. So these all are basically neutral nucleophile because they are electron rich, Now we will discuss something about the factors affecting nucleophile. Now we are going to discuss about the factors affecting nucleophile. So what are the factors affecting nucleophile? So these all topics. First we have discussed about the solvent. Now we are discussing about the nucleophile, because these two topics we required in nucleophilic substitution reaction. Therefore, I am discussing these 2 points there. So now we are going to discuss about affecting factors affecting nucleophile. We are going to discuss about factors affecting nucleophile. So the first factor I am going to discuss with you affecting nucleophile is electron density. So the first factor I am going to discuss with you factors affecting nucleophile, one is electron density. We can easily say, as electron density increases, nucleophilic strength also increases. So we can say, as electron density increases, nucleophilic strength also increases. Nucleophilic strength also increases. For example, negatively charged negatively charged nucleophile are stronger than their neutral nucleophiles. How? For example, if there is OH minus and there is water, because in OH minus due to negative charge, because in OH minus due to negative charge, there is more electron density. There is more electron density on oxygen atom. So OH minus is basically having more electron density than neutral. So OH minus having more electron density than water. Therefore, we can say negatively charged nucleophile is stronger nucleophile as compared to neutral nucleophile, as compared to neutral nucleophile. So first point, like OH minus is a stronger nucleophile as compared to water. See another case. If it is like this, we have given NH2 minus, we have given NH2 minus and NH3. Again, this is negatively charged and this is neutral for the same compound. But we know negatively charged nucleophile are stronger nucleophile as compared to neutral. In the same way, if we compare the strength of SH minus, if we compare the strength of SH minus nucleophile with H2S, so again we can say SH minus is a stronger nucleophile than H2S. So more electron density means more nucleophilic strength. More electron density means if electron density more, then nucleophilic strength will be more. Therefore, the negatively charged nucleophiles are stronger nucleophile as compared to the neutral nucleophiles. Now see what happens to the nucleophile in case of variation along the period. So we will discuss about the variation. We will discuss about the of variation of nucleophilic strength. Variation of nucleophilic strength in periodic table. Variation of nucleophilic strength in periodic table. How? So basically, if we have to compare the nucleophilic strength of CS3 minus, like we have to compare the nucleophilic strength of CS3 minus, NH2 minus, and OH minus and F minus. As we know, this is group 14, this is 15, and this is 16, and this is 17. So basically, these are the nucleophilic variation across the period. So first carbon, then nitrogen, and then oxygen, and then fluorine. And we know left to right, we know left to right electronegativity increases. Left to right across the period electronegativity increases. So this is, so electronegativity order should be like this: fluorine more electronegative, then oxygen, then carbon. Electronegativity means tendency to attract electron pair, tendency to attract electron pair towards itself. So we can say the negative charge on fluorine atom will be more attracted, more strongly attracted because of more electronegativity of fluorine. But the negative charge on carbon atom is less attracted because of low electronegativity of carbon. So we can easily say across the period, across the period for the comparison of nucleophilic strength, for the comparison of nucleophilic strength, simply compare the electronegativity of central atom. Electronegativity of central atom. More electronegativity means, if more electronegativity of central atom means less nucleophilic strength. If less electronegativity of central atom means more nucleophilic strength. So electronegativity of fluorine is highest, therefore nucleophilic strength will be lowest. So the correct variation of, so the order of nucleophilic strength will be, so the order of nucleophilic strength will be CH3 negative, then NH2 negative, then OH negative, and then F negative. This is the correct order of strength of nucleophile. This is the correct order of strength of nucleophile. Now see, so this is basically the variation of nucleophilic strength across the period. Now we will discuss about the nucleophilic strength in group. So we will discuss about the nucleophilic strength, across the group, from top to bottom, from top to bottom. For example, like F minus, Cl minus, Br minus, and I minus. It is given like this. It is given like this. So as we know, first we are going to discuss about nucleophilic strength. First we are going to discuss about nucleophilic strength across the group, in polar protic solvent. In polar protic solvent. So first we are going to discuss about the nucleophilic strength across the group in polar protic solvent. Basically we know polar protic solvent dissolves both cationic. Polar protic solvent dissolves both cationic and anionic part. Polar protic dissolves both cationic and anionic part of reagent. So basically polar protic solvent dissolves both cationic and anionic part of reagent. Yes. Now if a compound is given like this, reagent is given like sodium fluoride. So in sodium fluoride, one is Na positive, and one is F negative. Now see, we know water is basically polar in nature. This is positive, and this is negative. So there are two ends of water. We simply write this. There are two ends of water, one is positive and one is negative. This is basically I am treating water as. Now as we know, basically polar protic solvent, the polar protic solvent, this is NaF is basically reagent. Polar protic solvent dissolves both cationic and anionic part of the reagent. So this is cationic part of reagent and this is anionic part of reagent. So water is basically polar protic solvent. So Na plus will be attracted by the negative end of water. So it will be surrounded by water in this way. So Na plus is surrounded by water in this way from all sides. From the negative end, from the negative end of water, and this end is positive, this end is positive, this end is positive, this end is positive, this end positive, and this end positive. So in this way, water, this is what? This is water. This is also water. This is also water. This is also water, and this is also water, and this is also water. In the same way, this is the anionic part of reagent, and water will attract the, because polar protic solvent dissolves both cationic and anionic part of reagent. In the same way, F minus will also attracted towards the positive end of water. So water will surround F minus also. Because it dissolves both. So it attract F minus by positive end, by positive end, by positive end. So in this case, we have seen reagent basically containing two parts, cationic and anionic, and polar protic solvent dissolves both cationic and anionic part of reagent. So what happens? Now see the result of this. What happens? because this is basically when water is surrounding the cation and anion. This we call hydration. So this we call hydration. And basically this hydration is directly proportional. This hydration is directly proportional to charge density and inversely proportional to size. And inversely proportional to size. Now we can see in F minus, Cl minus, Br minus and I minus, the size increases from fluorine to iodine. Size increases. So F minus is smallest in size, and the charge is same. -1, -1, -1 and -1. So charge is same, but size is different. So basically F minus is smallest in size. We can say F minus is smallest in size. So F minus size is smallest in all four nucleophiles. In all four nucleophiles, F minus is smallest in size. When F minus is smallest in size, we know when size is smallest, hydration is highest. So we will say F minus smallest. Hydration of hydration of F minus will be highest. And when the hydration of F minus is highest, like this is basically the hydration of F minus. When the hydration of F minus is highest, it means it will be more bulky in size. It will be more bulky in size. When this is more bulky in size, it means it is difficult. It is difficult for the movement of F minus because of bulky size. So we can say due to bulky size, because F minus is smallest, but on hydration size increases. So we will say hydration increases. It means hydrated size will increase. It means hydrated size will increase. And when hydrated size increase, and when hydrated size increase means it is difficult to move for the nucleophile. So movement is related to mobility. So when hydrated size increases, then ionic mobility. When hydrated size increases, then ionic mobility will decrease. And when ionic mobility will decrease, it means nucleophilic strength will decrease. So in case of polar protic solvent, F minus smallest in size, more hydration, more hydrated size, less ionic mobility means less nucleophilic strength. So if we compare the nucleophilic strength, of F minus, Cl minus, Br minus and I minus in polar protic solvent. So the nucleophilic strength of F minus is least, while the nucleophilic strength of I minus is highest. So the order of nucleophilic strength in polar protic solvent, the order of nucleophilic strength will be I minus will be the strongest nucleophile, F minus will be the weakest nucleophile, then Cl minus, then Br minus. So this is the correct order. In the same way, if we have to compare, now I'm giving this in the form of question. If we have to compare the nucleophilic strength, if we have to compare the nucleophilic strength of F minus, Cl minus, Br minus and I minus in polar aprotic solvent. We have to compare the nucleophilic strength. We have to compare the nucleophilic strength of F minus, Cl minus, Br minus, and I minus in polar aprotic solvent. What is polar aprotic solvent? This is PAS. This is PAS. Now see what happens in this case. As we have already studied about polar aprotic solvent. So the first point I'm going to discuss with you in the form of note is basically polar aprotic solvent. Basically polar aprotic solvent dissolves polar aprotic solvent dissolves only cationic part. It dissolves only cationic part of reagent. So this is the main point. Polar aprotic solvent dissolves only cationic part of solvent. It means in polar aprotic solvent anionic part which is nucleophile. Anionic part which is nucleophile is free to attack. So it will attack with its full power. So polar aprotic solvent is only able to dissolve cationic part of reagent. So the anionic part of the solvent which is nucleophile is free to attack with its full strength. Now, so we will say polar in polar aprotic solvent. In polar aprotic solvent, hydration. In polar aprotic solvent, hydration of anion does not occur. Hydration of anion does not takes place. So in polar aprotic solvent, hydration of anion does not takes place. It means it means we can easily say if like F minus, Cl minus, Br minus and I minus. So we will say the size of F minus. The size of F minus is smallest. Size of F minus is smallest in simple form. Why in simple form? Because we know hydration of anion which is nucleophile does not occur. Therefore, the size of F minus is smallest. It means mobility of the mobility. It means the mobility of F minus is highest. It means mobility order will be F minus has highest mobility due to smallest size, then Cl minus, then Br minus, and then I minus. So nucleophilic strength order will be F minus will be highest, then Cl minus, then Br minus, and then I minus. So this is the nucleophilic strength. This is the order of nucleophilic strength in polar aprotic solvent. Remember this. And in polar protic solvent, this is the order of nucleophilic strength in polar protic solvent. This is all about the solvent and nucleophilic part. So we will discuss some more terms about the leaving group also for discussion of nucleophilic substitution in the next lecture.